How are you doing, everyone? Welcome to our today's news update from JMN. Colombia declares emergency after at least 111 people had been killed and 100 remain missing after magnitude 7.4 earthquake strike Colombia, the most powerful tremor to hit the country this century, according to the Colombia Geological Service. Quick on Monday ravaged cities across the western Colombia, including Cali, Pereira, Quibdó, and Maniz, and was felt in the neighboring Ecuador and Panama. The epicenter was in San Jorge de Palma in the Choco region, about 400 kilometers to 50 miles west of the capital, Bogota, the U.S. Geological Service said. The quake struck at depth of 107 kilometers, which is 66 miles in Cali, the country's third largest city. Such teams and civilians picked through the remains of destroyed buildings, passing large pieces of concrete and other rubble down a long line of volunteers. Local officials said at least 20 buildings crumbled, while 380 were damaged, trapping many people. State of emergency. The earthquake struck just days after Abeldo de la Espera was sworn in as a president, thrusting the new administration into its first major crisis, with memories still fresh of devastating twin earthquakes in the neighboring Venezuela in June. On digital databases, one of which had been more than 1,400 people, mostly in Cali and Pereira, with the numbers steadily climbing. In Pereira, photos and videos on local media showed pieces of airport ceiling falling on travelers who were taking shelter and screaming. The footage also showed a four-story building crumbling. Pereira's mayor, Mauricio Salazar, told a local radio station there was at least 15 collapsed buildings where people were feared. Nearby Manizales, footage showed one of the side towers of the city's landmark, neo-Geodic Central, collapsing and scattering debris onto nearby streets. Colombia's Civil Aviation Authority suspended operation at several airports in the country's west, including Pereira, Manizales, Quibdó, Armenia, Cartago, and Buenaventura, while engineers carried out structural inspections. Small earthquakes, known as temblors, are common in Colombia, which sits along the seismically active Pacific Ring of Fire, but was about magnitude of 6.0. Are rare. In 1999, a magnitude 6.2 quake near the city of Armenia killed more than 1,100 people. The Colombian Geological Service said Monday's quake was the country's strongest recorded in the 21st century. Northwestern University seismologist Susan Vandali said the quickest power magnitude, a land location, and strike slip motion may have applied damage in populated valleys despite its considerable depth. Huge fire breaks out at Libya's Zawiya refinery after drone attack. Firefighters in Libya are battling a massive blaze at the Zawiya refinery following a drone attack, with the country's national oil company warning it may declare a force majeure and shut down operation if attacks continue. Libya's ambulance and emergency service said in a statement on Tuesday there were no serious injuries from the fire. The most patient treated for smoke inhalation. The National Oil Corporation (NOC) said in a statement on Facebook that the fire broke out on a Monday evening at a tank number 402T belonging to the Brega Oil Company. It said the tank, which contained about 4.5 million liters, 1.2 gallons of gasoline, was directly targeted, resulting in a severe fire before the tank completely collapsed. The NOC said the attack followed drone strikes on a water desalination plant at the refinery on Sunday and on naphtha reservoir on Saturday. The company declared a maximum emergency in the region and urged authorities to launch an investigation and bring the perpetrators to justice. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for the attacks, and the company did not say who they believe was behind them. In a statement hours later, the new OC said the refinery was still being subjected to sabotage attacks, with a drone targeting an oil blending and filing plant operated by the Zawiya Oil Refinery Company. It said the drone fell near its main oil tank and a pipeline network used to produce oil for the domestic market without causing any casualties or damage. The company's board of directors also confirmed that if these attacks continue, it will have to declare a state of force majeure and suspend operation at the refinery. It warned. The Brega Oil Company, meanwhile, appealed to all parties to stop the fighting and stay away from oil facilities and depots. It said oil facilities are vital infrastructure and owned by all Libyans, and that protecting them is a national responsibility that does not tolerate any negligence. The attacks highlight the continuing security challenge in Libya, where the rival administration and armed groups have retained influence despite a 2020 ceasefire that halted major warfare. The country split in 2014 after a NATO-backed uprising that toppled longtime leader Muammar Gaddafi in 2011. Two governments are currently vying for power. The United Nations recognized administration in Tripoli, led by Prime Minister Abdul Hamid Debia, and a rival in the east backed by a military commander Khalifa Haftar. In a statement, the Tripoli-based government said Debia had held a meeting earlier in the day with the key officials, including the interior minister and the chief of some armed groups in the capital. To follow up the latest security developments, separately, a Libyan parliamentary panel condemned the attack and called for stronger protection of oil installations. The House of Representative Energy and the Natural Resources Committee condemns in the strongest terms the criminal attack targeting the Zawiya refinery, one of the most vital facilities in the oil and the gas sector that is cornerstone of the national economy, it said in a statement. Trump demand compensation from Iran as talks on the Strait of Hormuz continue. U.S. President seeks payment for 50 years of alleged damage after Iran conditioned reopening of Hormuz on war reparation. United States President Donald Trump has demanded compensation from Iran for those he claimed were killed by the country after Tehran conditioned the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz on receiving war reparation from Washington. Trump told reporters to the White House on Monday that his administration was going to seek payment for 50 years of damage caused by Iran, framing the move as a direct response to Tehran claims. Tehran has said it will not open the Strait of Hormuz, through which about a fifth of global oil and the liquefied natural gas flowed before the US-Israel war on Iran, unless Washington agrees to pay war reparations and end sanctions. The Iran demands were largely in line with the terms of interim peace agreement signed in June, which has since broken down over dispute on control over the straits. Talks between Iran and Oman over the waterway which separates the two countries are ongoing, but the Trump's new demand risks complicating efforts to reopen the maritime passage. Payment will cover debts among US forces in the region as well as civilian protesters in Iran, he said, claiming that 52,000 people had been killed in Iran in the past 4 months. Tehran said some 3,117 people died in anti-government protests that swept the country in January prior to the launch of the US-Israel war. Trump also said Tehran should compensate families of 17 US sailors killed in October 2000 attack in Yemen on USS Cole naval vessel, which has been blamed on Al-Qaeda, not Iran. Also, with respect to Iran negotiations, Iran should be responsible for the damage and the damage caused to people of Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, and Gaza, he wrote in a Truth Social post. Since the US-Israel war on Iran began on February 28, Trump has been repeatedly escalated between threats and escalations and claimed that a peace deal is imminent. That is all for today's news update. Thank you and God bless you.